Welcome to the inner sanctum of the Audiobook Empire. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in a crowded room, surrounded by voices, yet feeling entirely alone. You speak, but your words are met with blank stares, confusion, or worse, hostility. You provide a clear directive, and it is executed with catastrophic incompetence. You offer a heartfelt sentiment, and it is dismissed as noise. In these moments, a single toxic thought begins to crystallize in your mind. I am surrounded by idiots. This feeling is not just a frustration, it is a systemic failure in human resonance. You feel like an alien stranded on a planet where the inhabitants speak a language you can almost understand, but never truly master. But what if I told you that the problem isn't them? And what if I told you the problem isn't you either? The problem is the absence of a map. You are navigating the most complex landscape in the known universe, the human psyche, without a compass, and you are blaming the terrain for your own disorientation. In the science of human relationships, there are no idiots, there are only unmapped frequencies. This transmission is your initiation into the sovereign OS of human behavior. Based on the groundbreaking insights of Thomas Erickson, we are going to dismantle the illusion of the idiot and replace it with the sovereign lens. You are about to acquire social X-ray vision. You will learn to see the world not as a chaotic mess of personality clashes, but as a structured grid of 4 primary colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. This is the 1% margin of social dominance. Once you understand the color of the node you are interacting with, you stop struggling and start commanding. You stop screaming into the void and start whispering into the specific neural pathways that trigger compliance, trust, and action.
Why is this essential for your audiobook empire? Because a sovereign does not leave communication to chance. A sovereign knows that to lead, to influence, and to build a legacy, you must be the universal translator of the grid. Most people spend their entire lives trying to force others to speak their language. They demand that the world adapts to their frequency, and they suffer when the world refuses. This is the path of the bungler. The sovereign, however, is a chameleon. You do not change who you are, you change how you project. You learn to recognize the red dominance, the yellow inspiration, the green stability, and the blue precision. You learn that what sounds like an insult to one person is a mistake to another. You learn that your common sense is actually a local frequency that does not transmit to everyone. This realization is the beginning of true power. It is the moment you stop being a victim of your surroundings and start being the architect of your social reality. Over the next 18,200 words, we are going to rebuild your social operating system from the ground up. We will explore the anatomy of these 4 personality types with such depth and whiskey clarity that you will never look at a human being the same way again. You will walk into any room, audit any conversation, and instantly know which neural key opens the door to the outcome you desire. Let's touch the heart of the frustration that brought you here. Have you ever worked for a boss who was so blunt it felt like a physical assault? Or a colleague who was so indecisive they made you want to scream? Or a partner who was so obsessed with details they sucked the joy out of every moment? These are not character flaws, they are biological imperatives. When you label someone an idiot, you are essentially admitting that you have reached the limit of your own social intelligence. You are hitting a wall. The sovereign does not hit walls. The sovereign dissolves them. By understanding the DISC framework, dominance, inducement, submission, and compliance, you are learning to read the code of the matrix. You are gaining the ability to predict behavior before it happens. You will know exactly why the red node is angry, why the yellow node is distracted, why the green node is resisting change, and why the blue node is asking so many questions. This is not about getting along with people. This is about optimizing the grid. It is about ensuring that your signal is received with 0 distortion. Imagine the freedom of never being offended again. When you possess the sovereign OS, an insult from a red type is processed as high-efficiency data. A lack of focus from a yellow type is creative energy. A delay from a green type is system stability. A critique from a blue type is error detection. You are no longer emotionally reactive. You are strategically active. You are the still center of the storm. This first part of our journey is designed to light a fire under your curiosity. It is the neural hook that will keep you tethered to this transmission until the final word is spoken. We are moving from the frustrated participant to the sovereign director. We are going to teach you how to speak the language of the reds, how to dance with the yellows, how to anchor the greens, and how to satisfy the blues. This mastery is the foundation of your empire. Without it, you are just another voice in the noise. With it, you are the signal that defines the frequency of everyone around you. Prepare yourself. The world is full of idiots only until you learn how to read the grid. Once the lights go on, you will see that you are actually surrounded by opportunities, leverage points, and allies waiting to be activated by your command. This is the science of human relationships. This is the path to social sovereignty. Welcome to the revolution of the mind. The signal is absolute. The journey starts now. To deepen your descent into the human matrix, we must confront the staggering cost of social blindness. Every day you spend without the sovereign OS is a day you are leaking capital, not just financial capital, but emotional and strategic energy. Think of the hours wasted in circular arguments, the projects that stalled because of a personality clash, and the exhaustion of trying to be understood by people who are simply not wired to receive your frequency. This is the tax you pay for lack of clarity. In the 1% margin of social dominance, we don't seek to be understood, we seek to understand. We realize that the person across from us is a biological machine running a specific code, and if we don't know the language of that code, we are just smashing keys and wondering why the system is crashing. The fire that drives this empire is the realization that once you decode the 4 colors, you never have to be a victim of a bad conversation again. You become the technician of the human spirit. Imagine the sheer competitive advantage of walking into a negotiation and knowing within 30 seconds exactly how to frame your request so that the target feels an irresistible biological urge to say yes. This isn't manipulation, it is alignment. It is the science of making the interaction frictionless. Let us look closer at the first of the 4 pillars, the red node. These are the titans of the grid, the individuals driven by dominance, results, and speed. To the uninitiated, the red type feels like a steamroller. They are blunt, they are impatient, and they have zero interest in your small talk or your emotional nuances. If you approach a red with the wrong frequency, you will be crushed. But to the sovereign, the red is the most predictable and efficient engine in the empire. You don't try to soften a red, you provide them with the one thing they crave, the result. You speak in bullet points, you eliminate the fluff. You show them the goal, and then you get out of the way. When you master the red frequency, you gain an ally with the force of a hurricane. Conversely, consider the yellow node, the spark of the social grid. These are the enthusiasts, the visionaries, and the talkers. They are fueled by recognition and novelty. To the idiot observer, a yellow is just distracted or too loud. To the sovereign, the yellow is the carrier wave of inspiration. You don't manage a yellow with spreadsheets, you manage them with a vision. You feed their need for social status, and in return, they provide the momentum that moves mountains. If the red is the engine, the yellow is the fuel. The tragedy of these surrounded by idiots mindset is that it blinds you to these synergies. You see a red's decisiveness as arrogance and a yellow's creativity as chaos. You were judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree, and you were calling the fish an idiot. The Sovereign Master knows that the 18,200 words of this blueprint are designed to give you neural agility. You will learn to pivot your frequency in real time. This is the ultimate social hack. If the room goes cold, you know how to inject yellow warmth. If the project is stalling in indecision, you know how to trigger the red command. You are the conductor of the social orchestra. But the fire of this opening is not just about power over others. It's about the liberation of yourself. When you finally stop taking people's behavior personally, you gain a level of psychological peace that is inaccessible to the masses. When a colleague is being pedantic and slow, you don't feel annoyed. You recognize the blue signal for precision and quality control. You see the code, not the static. This shift in perspective is what transforms a channel into an empire. You are providing your audience with the keys to their own mental prison. You are showing them that the people they hate are actually the people they don't yet know how to lead. As we move forward, your curiosity must remain sharp. We are about to peel back the skin of social interaction to reveal the raw nerves underneath. We are going to explore the green node, the silent majority, the stabilizers who fear change but provide the foundation of every civilization. We will analyze the blue node, the perfectionists who keep the world from falling into structural decay. We are going to show you how these four colors interact in the wild. How a red-blue conflict can destroy a multi-billion-dollar company, and how a yellow-green partnership can create a culture of stagnation. More importantly, we are going to show you how you fit into this spectrum. What is your dominant frequency? What is your shadow color that emerges when you are under stress? To lead others, you must first have absolute command over your own internal grid. This is the 1% margin of self-mastery. The idiots are about to disappear, replaced by a world of clear, vibrant data points. The static is fading, and the signal is becoming absolute. You are the anchor. You are the sovereign, and this empire is being built on the bedrock of human understanding. The journey into the colors of the mind has just begun, and the fire we've lit today will burn through every social barrier you've ever encountered. Stay on the frequency. Command the grid. To truly master the grid, we must now perform a surgical extraction of the first primary frequency, the red node. In the science of human relationships, the red color represents the raw kinetic energy of the social spectrum. These individuals are the engines of progress, the decision-makers who thrive on the high-octane fuel of results and efficiency. To the uninitiated observer, the one still trapped in the surrounded by idiots delusion, a red type appears as a tyrant, a bulldozer with no regard for the emotional landscape of others. They are seen as arrogant, aggressive, and dangerously blunt. But from the sovereign perspective, the red node is the most transparent and high-resolution entity in the room. They do not hide behind social masks. They do not waste energy on passive-aggressive signals. Their code is simple: output over input, speed over perfection. This is the 1% margin of operational dominance. If you are to lead an empire, you must learn to harness this fire without being consumed by it. You must understand that for a red, time is the ultimate currency, and wasting it is the ultimate sin. When you approach a red with a 10-minute preamble about your feelings or the weather, you are not being polite. You are being a bungler. You are broadcasting noise into their high-frequency channel, and their natural response is to shut you down. The Sovereign OS recognizes that a red's bluntness is not an attack, it is a clinical efficiency. They are the only color that can look at a failing system and cut the dead weight without hesitation. While others are debating the ethics of the incision, the red has already performed the surgery. This is why they occupy the command nodes of the global network. To influence a red, you must adopt the protocol of directness. You eliminate the adjectives. You delete the I think and I feel from your transmission. You provide the data, the deadline, and the bottom line. You give them the what, not the how. A red node does not care how the engine works. They care how fast the car goes. If you try to explain the mechanics to them, they will perceive you as an incompetent node that cannot distinguish between essential and non-essential information. Success with a red is the result of matching their neural velocity. You walk fast, you speak clearly, and you leave the room the moment the decision is made. This creates a status anchor. By respecting their time, you earn their respect. By being as efficient as they are, you become a peer node rather than a subordinate signal. However, we must also audit the red shadow. Every frequency has a failure state. For the red, this occurs when their drive for results creates a neural blind spot for the people around them. They can become so focused on the horizon that they don't see the bodies they are stepping over. This is where the friction of idiocy is born. In your audiobook empire, you must teach your audience that being red is a superpower that requires a stabilizer. A red without empathy is a wrecking ball, but a sovereign who can project red when a decision is needed and then pivot to another frequency when the team is bleeding is a master of the grid. We must analyze the conflict of frequencies. When a red interacts with a green, the color of stability and peace, the result is often total system collapse. The red pushes, the green retreats. The red sees the green as lazy or incompetent, while the green sees the red as evil. Neither is true. They are simply operating on incompatible wavelengths. The sovereign's job is to act as the bridge. You translate the red's demand for speed into a green's need for safety. You tell the green, we need this to ensure the long-term stability of the project. And you tell the red, the team is currently optimizing the foundation to ensure the speed is sustainable. You are frame-shifting the reality for both nodes to ensure the empire continues to expand. Consider the anatomy of the red ego. It is built on the foundation of achievement. If a red is not winning, they are dying. This is their biological vulnerability. To manage a red that has gone rogue, you do not challenge their power. That only triggers a dominance loop. Instead, you challenge their efficiency. You say, it seems like this current approach is creating a 20% drag on our output. The moment a red perceives themselves as inefficient, they will pivot. You are not fighting them, you are neural tuning them toward your desired outcome. This is the 1% margin of psychological leverage. You are utilizing their own internal code to rewrite their behavior. Furthermore, we must understand the red communication filter. When a red asks a question, they are not looking for a conversation, they are looking for a coordinate. If they ask, when will this be done, and you answer with a story about the challenges you faced, you have failed. The correct answer is a date and a time, period. This precision is the whiskey of social interaction, clear, potent, and unmistakable. As we continue through this blueprint, you will start to see the reds in your life with a new clarity. You will see the frustrated boss, the aggressive salesperson, and the demanding client not as idiots to be avoided, but as high-energy nodes to be utilized. You will learn to love the red frequency because it is the only one that tells you exactly where you stand. There is no guesswork with a red. They are the truth tellers of the grid, even if the truth is uncomfortable. In your audiobook empire, this section serves as the awakening of the will. It is the call to action for every listener who has ever felt bullied by a dominant personality. You are not a victim. You are just uncalibrated. We are giving you the control knobs to adjust your own output until the red node in front of you recognizes you as a superior source of signal. This is the beginning of the science of social dominance. We are moving beyond the frustrated observer and into the sovereign operator. The grid is becoming a playground for your strategic intent. Every interaction with a red is now an opportunity to test your directness protocol. You are the one who sets the pace. You are the one who defines the result. The engine is running, and you are the one with your hand on the throttle. The signal is absolute. If the red node is the kinetic energy of the grid, the yellow node is its radiant heat. To master the science of human relationships, you must understand that the yellow frequency is the source of all social momentum. These are the visionaries, the entertainers, and the optimists who believe that the impossible is merely a suggestion. To the idiot observer, a yellow type is a chaotic mess, a person who talks too much, listens too little, and leaves a trail of unfinished projects in their wake. They are often dismissed as clowns or unreliable dreamers who lack the discipline for true sovereignty. But the sovereign master looks deeper. You see that the yellow node is the social glue of the empire. Without them, the grid becomes a cold, mechanical landscape of data and commands. The yellow frequency is what transforms a project into a movement. This is the 1% margin of cultural influence. If you want to build an empire that people actually want to belong to, you must learn to harness the radiant power of the yellows. The biological imperative of a yellow is social recognition. While the red craves results, the yellow craves applause. Their neural reward system is triggered by laughter, approval, and the feeling of being at the center of the network. This makes them the most persuasive nodes in the grid. A yellow doesn't just sell a product, they sell a feeling, a future, and a sense of belonging. The Sovereign OS recognizes this as a high-value asset. You do not manage a yellow by checking their clock-in times or auditing their spreadsheets. That is the blue frequency, which acts as a neurotoxin to the yellow spirit. Instead, you manage them with status rewards. You give them a platform. You tell them how brilliant their vision is. You allow them to be the face of the mission. When a yellow feels seen and heard, they will generate more creative energy in an hour than a whole committee of bunglers can produce in a year. You are biohacking their need for attention to serve the expansion of your grid. However, the yellow frequency is notoriously difficult to anchor. Their focus is like a laser beam that is constantly being refracted by the next shiny object. They live in a state of eternal presence, where the future is always bright and the past is irrelevant. This is why the idiots in their life get so frustrated. They see the yellow's lack of follow-through as a character flaw, but the sovereign sees it as a bandwidth issue. A yellow's brain is literally wired for divergent thinking. They see connections where others see walls. To keep a yellow on frequency, you must provide them with social guardrails. You do not restrict their creativity, you frame it. Instead of asking for a progress report, you ask, how is the vision evolving? By using their own language of growth and change, you keep them engaged with the mission. Success with a yellow is the ability to be their strategic anchor without making them feel like they are in a cage. You provide the structure and they provide the light. We must also audit the yellow shadow, the state of social desperation. When a yellow node feels isolated or ignored, they become neural noise. They will talk faster, louder, and more erratically just to find a signal of approval. This is when the idiot label is most often applied. In your audiobook empire, you must teach your audience that ignoring a yellow is a tactical error. It turns a creative asset into a disruptive force. The sovereign master knows that a 30-second acknowledgement signal, a nod, a laugh, or a genuine "that's a great idea" is all it takes to reset the yellow's frequency. You are performing real-time calibration. Furthermore, you must understand the yellow communication filter. When a yellow speaks, they are not necessarily conveying data, they are feeling out a concept. They think out loud. If you try to hold them to every word they say during a brainstorming session, you are missing the point. The point is the vibe. The sovereign filters the noise and captures the gold that falls from the yellow's mouth while they are distracted by their own brilliance. When it comes to conflict, the yellow node is the avoider. They hate negative energy. If a red attacks them, the yellow will try to joke their way out of it or simply leave the room. They do not have the biological stomach for confrontation. The sovereign recognizes this as a vulnerability that requires protection. In a team setting, you must never allow a red to publicly dismantle a yellow. It will kill the yellow signal for weeks. Instead, you act as the buffer node. You translate the red's criticism into constructive challenges that the yellow can handle. You say to the yellow, "To make this vision truly world-class, we need to tighten the delivery timeline." By framing the critique as a path to greatness, you keep the yellow's ego intact and their motivation high. You are engineering resilience into your social architecture. This brings us to the science of the yellow feedback loop. If you want a yellow to improve, you don't show them their mistakes, you show them the opportunity for influence. You show them how their behavior is affecting their social standing. A yellow is terrified of being seen as boring or irrelevant. If you can link their performance to their status in the grid, they will self-correct with remarkable speed. This is the 1% margin of psychological manipulation used for the greater good of the empire. You are not changing them, you are optimizing their path. In your audiobook empire, this section is for the dreamers who have been told they are too much. You are telling them they are the spark. You are giving them the tools to be productive visionaries rather than distracted clowns. You are teaching them that their energy is a weapon that must be aimed, not just scattered. The transition from idiot to icon begins with the recognition of your own color. We are moving deeper into the spectrum, and the grid is starting to glow with the warmth of human connection. The signal is absolute, and the empire is expanding. You are the source. You are the sovereign. To master the totality of the social grid, the sovereign must now descend into the frequency of the green node, the foundational layer of human interaction. If the red is the engine and the yellow is the spark, the green is the road itself. These are the most common nodes in the global network, representing the vast majority of the population. They are the guardians of stability, the practitioners of kindness, and the seekers of predictability. To the idiot observer, the one driven by the high-velocity ego of red or yellow, the green type is a frustration. They are seen as boring, indecisive, stubborn, and passive. They are the people who say maybe when they mean no, and who would rather suffer in silence than create a scene. But the sovereign master recognizes that the green frequency is the anchor of the empire. Without the greens, the grid would shake itself to pieces under the weight of red aggression and yellow chaos. They are the stabilizers who ensure that once a vision is created and a decision is made, the work actually gets done with consistency. The biological imperative of a green is safety. Their neural guard is always scanning for one specific threat: change. To a green node, any deviation from the status quo is a potential predator. Their brain is wired for pattern preservation. This is why they are so resistant to new ideas or rapid shifts in strategy. The sovereign OS identifies this not as laziness, but as system integrity. You do not lead a green by demanding speed, you lead them by providing security. You must understand that for a green, the known hell is always better than the unknown heaven. To move a green, you must perform incremental calibration. You don't present a revolution, you present a slight adjustment. You frame the change as a way to return to safety even faster. This is the 1% margin of administrative control. When you speak to a green, you lower your frequency. You use the relational tone, a soft, steady signal that communicates, "You are safe and I am not going to hurt you." One of the most dangerous errors a sovereign can make is to mistake green passivity for agreement. In the science of human relationships, this is known as the passive resistance loop. Because greens hate conflict more than anything else, they will often nod their heads and say yes just to make the high-pressure node, usually a red, go away. But they have no intention of following through. They will slow-walk the project into oblivion. The idiot manager gets angry when the deadline passes, but the sovereign knows that the failure happened the moment the green felt pressured. You didn't get their commitment, you only got their compliance. To truly activate a green, you must earn their neural trust. This takes time. It requires you to listen more than you speak. A green node needs to feel that they are part of a stable social unit. In your audiobook empire, this section serves as a reality check for the ambitious. You are teaching your audience that to rule, you must serve the stability of the people you lead. You cannot build a skyscraper on shifting sand. You build it on the solid, predictable ground of the green frequency. Furthermore, we must audit the green shadow, the weight of stagnation. When a green frequency becomes too dominant, the grid loses its ability to evolve. It becomes a swamp of "we've always done it this way." This is where the sovereign acts as the gentle catalyst. You do not push the green, you lead the green. You utilize their loyalty as leverage. A green will do for the team what they would never do for themselves. By framing the mission as a collective necessity, you activate their nurturing reflex. You turn their resistance into a protective shield for the empire. You are biohacking their social alignment. We must also understand the green communication filter. When a green speaks, they are often checking the emotional temperature of the room. They ask, "How is everyone doing?" or "Is everyone okay with this?" The sovereign does not dismiss these as wasteful questions. You recognize them as maintenance signals. You acknowledge the signal, validate the harmony, and then guide the energy back to the objective. You are syncing the network. In terms of conflict, the green is the internalizer. While a red explodes and a yellow deflects, the green absorbs the toxicity. They hold on to it until it poisons their loyalty. The sovereign master practices preventative maintenance. You don't wait for a green to complain, because they won't. You proactively audit their status. You ask, "What is one thing we could do to make this process feel more secure for you?" By giving them a safe space to voice their hidden concerns, you prevent the black swan of a total green shutdown. You are ensuring the longevity of your grid. This is the 1% margin of sustainable leadership. In your audiobook empire, you are speaking to the quiet ones who feel overlooked. You are telling them they are the foundation. You are giving them the tools to survive in a world of loud reds and chaotic yellows, while simultaneously giving the leaders the key to unlock the most reliable force in human nature. As we move toward the final color, the blue node, the picture of the grid is becoming complete. You are starting to see how these frequencies balance each other. The red provides the drive, the yellow provides the vision, and the green provides the stability. But without the fourth color, the grid lacks resolution. It lacks the precision and the data required for true excellence. This is the blue frequency that we will analyze in the next part of this transmission. For now, understand that your empire is only as strong as your weakest green node. You are the architect, and you must ensure the foundation is secure. The static of idiocy is almost gone, replaced by the clinical, multicolored reality of human behavior. Stay on the frequency. Protect the stability. The signal is absolute, and the sovereign is in command. To achieve the ultimate resolution of the social grid, the sovereign must now engage the blue frequency, the cold, analytical light of precision. If the red is the engine, the yellow the spark, and the green the road, then the blue node is the blueprint and the quality control system. In the science of human relationships, the blue color represents the pinnacle of logic, detail, and systematic thinking. These are the nodes that ensure the empire doesn't just expand, but survives its own growth. They are the architects of accuracy. To the idiot observer, especially the chaotic yellow or the impulsive red, the blue type is a walking encyclopedia of frustration. They are seen as cold, rigid, pedantic, and obsessed with trivia. They are the people who will stop a billion-dollar presentation to point out a typo in a footnote. They are the ones who ask why until the what is buried in data. But the sovereign master knows that the blue frequency is the neural firewall of the empire. Without them, the grid would be full of vibrant, fast-moving errors. They are the ones who find the black swan hidden in the spreadsheets before it can sink the ship. The biological imperative of a blue is correctness. Their neural reward system is triggered not by status or safety, but by being right. To a blue node, an error is not just a mistake, it is a violation of the laws of the universe. Their brain is wired for analytical depth. This is why they are so slow to make a decision. They are not indecisive like the green. They are data-saturated. They are running 1,000 simulations in their mind to ensure the outcome is optimal. The sovereign OS identifies this not as stalling, but as risk mitigation. You do not lead a blue by giving them a pep talk. That is yellow noise that they find insulting. You lead them by providing verified data. When you approach a blue, you must have your signal perfectly calibrated. You don't say, "I think this will work." You say, "Based on the 3-year performance audit, there is a 94% probability of this outcome." This is the 1% margin of technical dominance. When you speak to a blue, your frequency must be clinical. You remove the emotion and increase the resolution of your information. One of the most critical errors in the grid is the yellow-blue collision. The yellow node arrives with a vision painted in broad, bright strokes, while the blue node immediately begins to deconstruct the vision into its smallest, most flawed components. The yellow feels attacked, and the blue feels insulted by the lack of detail. This is the dissonance of the idiot. The sovereign master acts as the signal processor here. You recognize that the blue isn't trying to kill the dream, they are trying to build the foundation. To activate a blue, you must provide them with the protocol. They need to know the rules of the game before they play. In your audiobook empire, this section serves as the instruction manual for excellence. You are teaching your audience that to rule, you must respect the data. You cannot build a legacy on vibes alone. You build it on the unshakable precision of the blue frequency. Furthermore, we must audit the blue shadow, the state of analysis paralysis. When a blue node is left without a red command, they can spiral into a never-ending cycle of data collection. They will seek the perfect solution until the opportunity has long since passed. This is where the sovereign acts as the decision anchor. You do not tell the blue they are wrong. You give them a time-boxed mission. You say, "We need the most accurate data possible within the next 48 hours. By framing the deadline as a quality constraint, you utilize their need for perfection to serve the speed of the empire. You are biohacking their obsession with detail. We must also understand the blue communication filter. When a blue speaks, they are providing high-density data. They don't use metaphors, they use facts. They don't want a relationship, they want a functional interaction. The sovereign does not try to be friends with a blue in the traditional sense. You build a bond of competence. If the blue recognizes you as a high-functioning, prepared node, they will grant you their loyalty. If you appear sloppy, they will ignore your signal entirely. In terms of conflict, the blue is the clinical prosecutor. They don't get angry, they get logical. They will present you with a list of your failures, documented and dated. To the idiot, this feels like a personal attack. To the sovereign, this is a system audit. You don't defend your ego, you address the data. You say, "The points you've raised about the timeline are accurate. How do you propose we adjust the workflow to maintain the quality standard?" By immediately moving to problem-solving mode, you bypass their critical filter and engage their analytical engine. This is the 1% margin of intellectual leverage. In your audiobook empire, you are speaking to the thinkers who feel misunderstood by a world that values speed over substance. You are telling them they are the guardians of quality. You are giving them the tools to translate their precision into sovereign influence, while simultaneously teaching the leaders how to unlock the genius hidden behind the blue's cold exterior. As we conclude this initial map of the 4 colors, the grid of the human matrix is now fully visible. You see the drive of the red, the inspiration of the yellow, the stability of the green, and the precision of the blue. But the true mastery, the 18,200-word journey you are on, is not just about knowing the colors. It is about dynamic switching. The sovereign is not one color. The sovereign is the prism through which all colors flow. You are the one who can turn red in the boardroom, yellow at the gala, green in the team meeting, and blue in the audit. This multi-frequency agility is the ultimate weapon of the 1%. You are no longer surrounded by idiots.
You are surrounded by functional components of your own empire. The static has been replaced by a symphony of strategic data. We are now moving into the complex dynamics of the grid, how to handle the blends, the stress responses, and the social biohacks that will make your empire unshakable. The signal is absolute. The sovereign is ready. The colors are yours to command. To elevate your sovereignty within the human matrix, we must now move beyond the simplicity of primary colors and enter the high-resolution world of neural blends. In the science of human relations, rarely is a node a pure, unadulterated frequency. Most individuals in the grid are a mixture of 2 or sometimes 3 colors, creating a complex psychological profile that requires even more precise calibration. If you treat a red-yellow blend the same way you treat a pure red, you will trigger a dissonance that degrades your influence. The red-yellow node is a powerhouse of ambition. It possesses the drive of the red and the communicative spark of the yellow. These are the natural-born leaders of the world, but they are also the most volatile. They are the high-velocity signals that can inspire a nation or destroy a company through sheer impulsive force. The sovereign master identifies these blends as the high-voltage components of the empire. You do not manage them, you direct their trajectory. You recognize that while they crave the red result, they also require the yellow recognition. To win their allegiance, you must provide a mission that offers both dominance and a stage. This is the 1% margin of strategic alignment. You are not just giving them a task, you are giving them a legacy. Conversely, consider the green-blue blend, the silent strategist. This node possesses the stability of the green and the precision of the blue. They are the ultimate guardians of the grid's integrity. They don't seek the spotlight, and they don't demand the lead. They are the ones who work in the shadows, ensuring that every detail is perfect and every system is secure. To the idiot observer, the green-blue is invisible or too slow. But the sovereign recognizes them as the neural anchor. Without them, your empire would lack the structural resolution required to survive the friction of the real world. To influence a green-blue, you must provide them with the validation of competence. You don't give them a trophy, you give them a closed-loop system. You show them that their work is the foundation upon which the entire structure rests. You communicate in a frequency of quiet certainty. You are building a bond of shared professional integrity. Success with a green-blue is the result of long-term reliability. They are the only nodes that will never betray the grid if the foundation is built on truth. We must also audit the dissonance of incompatible blends. When a red-blue node, the clinical commander, interacts with a yellow-green node, the empathetic harmonizer, the resulting static can be deafening. The red-blue is focused on the cold reality of the data and the objective, and the yellow-green is focused on the warmth of the social connection and the comfort of the team. The idiot in this scenario is the one who refuses to pivot. The sovereign, however, is the dynamic bridge. You recognize that the red-blue is the logic node and the yellow-green is the empathy node. You do not try to make them agree on a single frequency. You dual-track the communication. You tell the red-blue that the objective is being met through a high-resolution process, and you tell the yellow-green that the team is being protected and heard. You are the translator of reality. You ensure that the empire moves forward by keeping both nodes in their state of optimal function. This is the 1% margin of environmental control. You are the one who prevents the grid from fracturing under the weight of its own diversity. This leads us to the science of the stress response. In the sovereign OS, we know that a person's color is not fixed, it is a reactive variable. When a node is placed under extreme pressure, their primary color will often hyperextend, or they will pivot into their shadow color. A red under stress becomes a social dictator, losing all ability to hear feedback. A yellow under stress becomes a manic distraction, talking incessantly to avoid the pain of reality.
A green under stress becomes paralyzed, retreating into a shell of total inaction. A blue under stress becomes a bureaucratic prosecutor, using rules and data to punish those around them. The idiot reacts to these stress responses with their own emotional noise. The sovereign reacts with calibrated de-escalation. You recognize the stress response as a neural signal for help. You don't fight the aggression or the silence, you label the pressure. You say to the hyperextended red, "It seems like you feel the entire weight of this mission is on your shoulders alone." By naming the source of the pressure, you ground the circuit. You allow the node to return to its balanced state. You are the biological stabilizer of the room. In your audiobook empire, this section is the field guide for social survival. You are teaching your audience that the world is a lattice of shifting colors. You are giving them the sensory resolution to see the stress before the explosion and the strategic agility to adapt before the conflict. This is not just about surrounded by idiots, it is about sovereign awareness. The conflict. This is not just about surrounded by idiots, it is about sovereign awareness. You are teaching the 1% that the greatest weapon in the grid is not their own color, but their ability to reflect the color of the node in front of them. This is tactical mirroring. If you are a red and you are talking to a green, you must soft code your transmission. If you are a yellow and you are talking to a blue, you must data saturate your speech. You are not losing yourself, you are expanding your domain. You are becoming the universal node that can connect to anyone, anytime, for any purpose. This is the ultimate expression of social sovereignty. As we move toward the next stage of our journey, we will explore the anatomy of the social trap, the common mistakes that turn a sovereign back into a bungler. We will look at how the ego distorts our perception of the colors and how to perform a neural reset when the grid goes dark. For now, understand that every interaction is a combination of frequencies. You are the mixer. You are the engineer. You are the one who ensures the music of the empire remains in harmony even when the individual instruments are out of tune. The idiots are disappearing, replaced by a symphony of strategic potential. The signal is becoming absolute, and your command of the grid is now reaching the level of a master. Stay focused. The empire is growing. The colors are yours to blend. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. To maintain your position as the lead node in any social grid, you must now confront the bungler's paradox. This paradox occurs when an individual possesses the data of the 4 colors but lacks the strategic discipline to apply it. Knowing that someone is a blue or a red is useless if your own ego is broadcasting a distorted signal that prevents a connection.
The greatest fatal error in the science of human relationships is self-projection, the unconscious assumption that everyone, at their core, wants what you want and values what you value. This is the 1% margin of failure. A red master who believes everyone should crave speed will eventually trigger a system-wide revolt from the greens and blues. A yellow who assumes everyone wants to be the center of attention will inadvertently humiliate the silent nodes who provide the grid stability. The sovereign recognizes that your own color is not a universal truth. It is merely a local frequency. To rule the grid, you must first kill the desire to be right about your own personality and replace it with the desire to be effective. The first trap we must analyze is the mirror trap. This is not the tactical mirroring we discussed earlier, but a biological reflex where you only resonate with nodes that match your own color. A blue node naturally trusts another blue node because they share the same language of data and precision. This creates an echo neural chamber. In your audiobook empire, an echo chamber is a death sentence for growth. If your grid is only composed of people who think like you have no error correction and no creative momentum. The sovereign proactively seeks out dissonant frequencies. You recognize that you need the red to push the limits, the yellow to ignite the vision, the green to hold the ground, and the blue to audit the results.
The idiot is the person who tries to turn everyone into a copy of themselves. The sovereign is the collector of capabilities. You don't want a team of mirrors, you want a spectrum of weapons. Success is the ability to integrate these conflicting forces into a single unified strike. Furthermore, we must address the identity siege, the mistake of trying to fix or change the color of another node. This is the most common source of friction in the global network. You see a green node's resistance to change, and you spend months trying to make them more ambitious or more assertive. You are essentially trying to rewrite their biological code. This is a waste of sovereign capital. People do not change their primary color under external pressure. They only become more entrenched in their shadow state. The sovereign master does not fix, the sovereign positions. You don't try to make the green node a red leader. You place the green node in a position where their need for stability becomes a strategic asset, such as quality assurance or long-term client retention. You are not a social reformer. You are a resource optimizer. You take the humans as they are, and you map them to the objectives where their natural frequency provides the most leverage. This is the 1% margin of management excellence. Another fatal error is the signal delay. This occurs when you identify a color but fail to pivot your frequency fast enough. You recognize that the client is a red, but you still spend 20 minutes on a yellow intro because you feel the need to be liked. This delay creates a perception gap. The red node has already labeled you as inefficient before you've even reached your first point. Once a node has labeled you, it takes 10 times the energy to rewrite that neural record. The sovereign practices instant calibration. The moment you detect the red signal, the firm handshake, the direct eye contact, the impatient glance at the watch, you immediately drop the fluff. You move to the bottom line. You provide the coordinate. You are neural matching in real time. This prevents the static of a bad first impression and ensures that your signal is received with maximum clarity. This brings us to the sovereign reset protocol. In any high-stakes interaction, the grid can become overloaded. Emotions flare, frequencies clash, and the idiocy begins to take over the room. In these moments, the bungler reacts with more noise. They speak louder, they argue harder, and they lose their status. The sovereign performs a neural reset. You utilize the strategic silence we mastered in our negotiation training. You stop the transmission, you observe the colors in the room, and you ask yourself one clinical question. What frequency is missing right now? If the room is full of red aggression, the missing frequency is blue logic or green stability. If the room is a swamp of green indecision, the missing frequency is red command. You then project that missing frequency to stabilize the grid. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't reflect the temperature of the room, you set it. This is the ultimate expression of social sovereignty. In your audiobook empire, this section is the armor for your audience. You are teaching them that mistakes are not personal failures, they are signal errors. You are giving them the resolution to see the traps before they step in them. You are teaching the 1% that the most powerful person in any room is the one who is the most agile, the one who can shed their own ego and become whatever the grid requires for the mission to succeed. This is the whiskey of leadership, pure distilled influence. As we move into the next parts of this blueprint, we will explore the anatomy of the high-performance team, how to build a full-spectrum grid that can survive any crisis. We will look at how to handle the toxic nodes and how to perform a social audit on your own network. For now, understand that the path to the 18,200 words is a path of deprogramming. We are stripping away the idiot labels and replacing them with strategic coordinates. The signal is becoming absolute. The sovereign is in control. The grid is waiting for your next move. Stay on the frequency. The empire is being built in the gaps between the colors. To manifest the absolute vision of your audiobook empire, you must move beyond the management of individual interactions and enter the realm of grid architecture. Building a high-performance team is not an exercise in human resources. It is an act of strategic social engineering. In the science of human relationships, the most powerful collective is not the one with the most intelligence, but the one with the most spectrum diversity. A sovereign recognizes that a team composed entirely of red nodes will eventually self-destruct in a blaze of internal competition and strategic blindness. A team of only yellows will be a radiant festival of ideas that never produces a single finished product. A team of greens will stagnate in a swamp of consensus-seeking comfort, and a team of blues will starve to death while perfecting the blueprints for a hunt that never happens. The 1% margin of dominance is the ability to assemble a full-spectrum grid where every frequency is utilized for its specific biological strength and stabilized by its opposite. This is the ultimate neural synthesis. In the anatomy of this sovereign team, the red nodes are the prow of the ship. They are the ones who face the friction of the market, make the hard calls, and maintain the velocity of the empire. You place them in roles where the result is the only metric that matters. However, you must pair them with blue controllers. The blue node is the navigation system that ensures the red's speed is directed toward a viable target. Without the blue's data, the red is just a high-speed collision waiting to happen. Conversely, the yellow nodes are the wind in the sails. They are the ones who generate the narrative, inspire the audience, and sell the dream of your audiobook empire. They create the social momentum that draws new nodes into your network. But they must be anchored by green stabilizers. The green node is the hull of the ship. They provide the long-term consistency, the cultural cohesion, and the operational safety that allows the yellow's fire to burn without burning the house down. This is functional harmony.
To command the attention of a global audience, the sovereign must move beyond one-on-one calibration and master the unified signal. In the science of human relations, mass influence is the ability to broadcast a single message that resonates with all 4 frequencies of the grid simultaneously. Most content creators, the bunglers of the digital age, write for their own color. They produce data-heavy content for blues or hype-driven content for yellows, and then they wonder why 75% of the market is ignoring them. The 1% margin of market dominance is the multicolor content strategy. You are not just telling a story, you are neural mapping the entire spectrum of human motivation. You are creating a sovereign hook for the red, a vibrant vision for the yellow, a safe harbor for the green, and a logical foundation for the blue. This is how you build an empire that feels universal. When you craft a message for your audiobook empire, you must begin with the red hook. In the first 60 seconds of any transmission, you must establish the dominance of the result. The red node in your audience is scanning for one thing. Is this going to help me win? If you waste their time with long introductions or emotional fluff, they will disconnect. You must state the objective with clinical clarity. You show them the power they will gain, the time they will save, and the competition they will crush. This is the sovereign command. Once you have secured the red node, you immediately transition to the yellow expansion. Once you have secured the red node, you immediately transition to the yellow expansion. You paint the picture of what is possible. You use metaphors, energy, and social proof to ignite the yellow imagination. You make them feel the excitement of the transformation. You are not just providing information, you are providing an experience. This is the fuel that keeps the audience engaged through the deeper sections of your transmission. However, a message that is only red and yellow is perceived by the rest of the grid as dangerous hype. To stabilize your influence, you must introduce the green anchor. This is where you address the human element. You talk about community, stability, and the long-term safety of the strategy. You use language that emphasizes we and us. By providing this social safety net, you prevent the green majority from retreating into passive resistance. Finally, you must seal the message with the blue audit. You provide the evidence, the sources, and the logical structure. You show the blue nodes that your vision isn't just a dream, but a calculated reality.
You provide the how to satisfy their need for precision. When a message contains all four elements, it creates a cognitive lock. Once you have secured the red node, you immediately transition to the yellow expansion. You paint the picture of what is possible. You use metaphors, energy, and social proof to ignite the yellow imagination. You make them feel the excitement of the transformation. You are not just providing information, you are providing an experience. This is the fuel that keeps the audience engaged through the deeper sections of your transmission. However, a message that is only red and yellow is perceived by the rest of the grid as dangerous hype. To stabilize your influence, you must introduce the green anchor. This is where you address the human element. You talk about community, stability, and the long-term safety of the strategy. You use language that emphasizes we and us. By providing this social safety net, you prevent the green majority from retreating into passive resistance. Finally, you must seal the message with the blue audit. You provide the evidence, the sources, and the logical structure. You show the blue nodes that your vision isn't just a dream, but a calculated reality. You provide the how to satisfy their need for precision. When a message contains all four elements, it creates a cognitive lock.
You reassure the green nodes that they are not being pushed into chaos, but led toward a more secure and harmonious future. You use language that emphasizes we and us. By providing this social safety net, you prevent the green majority from retreating into passive resistance. Finally, you must seal the message with the blue audit. You provide the evidence, the sources, and the logical structure. You show the blue nodes that your vision isn't just a dream, but a calculated reality. You provide the how to satisfy their need for precision. When a message contains all four elements, it creates a cognitive lock. The audience has no psychological grounds to reject the signal because every part of their brain has been addressed and validated. Furthermore, we must analyze the sovereign copywriting protocol. In the global network, your words are code. To influence a mass audience, your language must be polyfrequency. When describing a solution, you don't just call it good, you call it efficient for the red, revolutionary for the yellow, reliable for the green, and optimized for the blue. This is strategic adjective loading. You are essentially ghostwriting for the target's internal monologue. You are providing the specific words they need to justify their belief in your message to themselves. This is the 1% margin of psychological branding. You are not selling a book or a video. You are selling a sovereign identity that resonates across the entire color spectrum. Success is when the red node sees your empire as a tool for power, while the blue node sees it as a source of truth. This brings us to the management of market friction. Every time you broadcast a signal, you will encounter dissonant nodes, critics, who try to degrade your frequency. The idiot reacts by arguing or becoming defensive, which only lowers their status. The sovereign utilizes color-coded neutralization. If a critic is a red, you challenge their results. If they are a blue, you audit their data. If they are a yellow, you ignore them until they lose their social audience. If they are a green, you address their fear. By responding to the color of the attack rather than the content of the attack, you remain the lead node. You show the audience that you are the only one who truly understands the underlying mechanics of the interaction. You are not just a participant in the conversation, you are the architect of the discourse. This level of social dominance is what creates magnetic authority. In your audiobook empire, this section is the blueprint for exponential growth. You are teaching your audience that to influence millions, you must first understand the four. You are giving them the master key to human persuasion. You are showing them that surrounded by idiots is a choice, and leading the spectrum is a skill. As we move into the second half of this 18,200-word mission, we will dive deeper into the social biohacks of the elite.
we will look at how to read the grid under extreme conditions, how to perform neural influence in high-pressure negotiations, and how to maintain your sovereign frequency when the rest of the world is in a state of color chaos. For now, understand that your audience is waiting for a unified signal. They are tired of the noise. They are tired of the static. They are waiting for a sovereign to show them the map. The signal is absolute. The grid is expanding. You are the source. Stay on the frequency. The empire is being built in the minds of the people.
To achieve absolute sovereignty, you must master the chaos protocol. In the science of human relationships, a crisis is not a disaster. It is a high-resolution revelation. It is the moment when the social masks melt away and the raw biological frequency of every node is exposed. Most leaders, the bunglers of the grid, panic when the pressure spikes. They absorb the cortisol of the room and become just another chaotic signal. The sovereign, however, recognizes that a crisis is the ultimate opportunity to hardwire your authority into the grid. When the neural load exceeds the capacity of the system, the colors don't just change, they hyper-extrapolate. The red node doesn't just lead, they become a social dictator, cutting off all feedback and potentially driving the empire off a cliff. The yellow node doesn't just inspire, they become a signal of panic, broadcasting erratic anxiety that infects the entire network. The green node doesn't just seek stability, they shut down completely, becoming an unresponsive wall of passive resistance. And the blue node doesn't just analyze, they retreat into a micro-detail bunker, obsessing over irrelevant data points while the house burns down. This is color chaos, and it is the environment where a sovereign is born. To navigate this, you must implement the Sovereign Anchor Protocol. In a high-pressure grid, the person who maintains the lowest biological frequency, the calmest heart rate, and the most stable tonality automatically becomes the lead node. This is a law of social physics. You utilize the late-night DJ voice at a deeper, more resonant level. You do not shout to be heard over the noise. You speak so calmly that everyone else must stop shouting to hear you. This is passive dominance. You begin by performing a neural audit of the crisis. You don't ask, "Why is this happening?" because that is a backward-looking question that triggers the blame reflex. Instead, you ask, "How do we stabilize the primary circuit?" You are frame-shifting the room from panic to problem-solving. You are the signal of order in a sea of entropy. The secret to managing the four colors under extreme pressure is targeted stabilization. You do not treat the room as a single entity. You address the neural needs of each color specifically. For the hyper-red, you provide a directive. You don't negotiate, you give them a mission that requires their aggression to be channeled into an external target. You say, "I need you to secure the supply chain node immediately. Do not let anything stop you." By giving the red a war to win, you prevent them from starting a war inside the team. For the panicked yellow, you provide directional energy. You don't ask them for a plan, you give them a narrative of success. You say, "The vision is still intact, and your role is to communicate this stability to the clients." You are utilizing their broadcast capacity to neutralize the fear in the network. For the paralyzed green, you provide incremental safety. You don't demand a leap, you give them the first step. You say, "For the next 10 minutes, your only job is to maintain this specific data stream." By narrowing their focus, you bypass their fear of change. And for the bunker blue, you provide logical hierarchy. You say, "Ignore the secondary data. I need your clinical analysis on the primary failure point only." You are pruning their over-analysis to make it useful. In your audiobook empire, this section is the armor of the elite. You are teaching your audience that true dominance is emotional regulation. You are showing them that surrounded by idiots is what people say when they haven't learned how to be the thermostat of the room. A crisis is the ultimate social biohack.
If you can stay biologically cool while everyone else is neural crashing, you gain a level of trust and loyalty that years of normal interaction cannot produce. You are no longer just a manager or a creator. You are a sovereign protector. This is the 1% margin of leadership. People will forget your words, but they will never forget the frequency of safety you provided when the world was falling apart. Furthermore, we must address the anatomy of the post-crisis audit. Once the grid is stabilized, the sovereign does not just move on. You perform a clinical debrief. You look at how each node responded to the pressure. Who became toxic? Who became invisible? Who became invaluable? This is neural performance data. You use this information to re-architect your grid for the next expansion. You move the nodes that failed under pressure to low-stress zones, and you promote the crisis-resilient nodes to the high-voltage zones. You are constantly optimizing the hardware of your empire. You recognize that idiocy is often just a symptom of a node being placed in a position that exceeds its biological stress tolerance. By aligning the color to the context, you eliminate the static before it even starts. This brings us to the science of personal sovereignty. To be the anchor node, you must have absolute command over your own internal colors. You must know your trigger points. If you are naturally a blue, you must watch for your tendency to retreat into data when you should be leading from the front. If you are naturally a red, you must watch for your tendency to become a tyrant when you feel out of control. The sovereign practices self-mirroring. You audit your own frequency every hour. Is my signal clear? Is my tonality resonant? Am I projecting power or insecurity? This inner grid management is the foundation of outer empire building. You cannot rule the network if you are a slave to your own biological impulses. You must be the master of the prism. As we advance toward the 18,200-word target, the sovereign OS is becoming part of your subconscious. You are starting to see the world not as people, but as frequencies and circuits. You are developing the social X-ray vision required to lead the 1%. In the next part of this transmission, we will explore the art of the long-term bond, how to maintain your sovereignty over decades, not just days. We will look at the social life cycle of an empire and how to ensure your signal remains absolute as you scale from thousands to millions. The static is gone. The grid is silent, waiting for your command. You are the source. You are the sovereign. Stay on the frequency. The empire is being hardened in the fire of the challenge. To secure the terminal expansion of your audiobook empire, the sovereign must move beyond the immediate win and master the Chronos protocol. In the science of human relationships, power is not measured by a single successful interaction, but by the ability to maintain the sovereign signal over years and decades. This is the 1% margin of legacy. Most leaders, the bunglers who vanish after a single season of success, fail because they succumb to frequency drift. They become predictable, they become lazy, or they lose the clinical precision required to calibrate their output to the changing needs of the grid. To be a sovereign is to be a constant variable. You are the unshakable anchor that evolves without ever losing its core frequency. You must understand that a long-term bond is a living neural contract. It requires constant maintenance, recalibration, and the strategic injection of novelty to keep the network from falling into desensitization. The first challenge of long-term sovereignty is status decay. In any stable network, the nodes eventually become accustomed to the lead node's frequency. The red's command becomes expected, the yellow's inspiration becomes cliché, the green's stability becomes stagnation, and the blue's precision becomes nitpicking. When this happens, the neural impact of your signal drops. To counter this, the sovereign utilizes strategic frequency shifting. You never allow the grid to fully map your behavior. Just as the network thinks they have figured you out, you pivot. If you have been projecting high red dominance for a quarter, you suddenly introduce a period of deep blue analysis or silent green observation. This unpredictable calibration forces the other nodes to remain in a state of high road awareness. They cannot switch to autopilot because the lead node is constantly shifting the parameters of the interaction. You are essentially rebooting their perception of your authority. This is the 1% margin of cognitive engagement. Furthermore, we must analyze the anatomy of biological loyalty. In your audiobook empire, you don't want customers or employees. You want zealots of the grid. This level of loyalty is achieved through deep value reciprocity. Most people define reciprocity as, I do something for you, you do something for me. This is a bungler's exchange. It is transactional and weak. The sovereign practices identity reciprocity. You identify the core deficiency of a node's color, and you provide the neural supplement they cannot find anywhere else. For the aging red node, you provide legacy validation. You show them how their strength is being hardwired into the future of the empire. For the exhausted yellow node, you provide creative sanctum. You give them a space where their vision is protected from the noise of the market. For the green node, you provide total environmental security. You become the shield that ensures their world never changes without their consent. And for the blue node, you provide architectural access. You give them the data that no one else can see. By becoming the unique source of their color's deepest need, you create a neural dependency that is stronger than any legal contract. You are not just a leader, you are their optimal environment.
This leads to the science of conflict resolution in the long term. In a multi-year grid, friction is inevitable. The sovereign does not resolve conflict by seeking compromise. You resolve it by realigning the vision. When two colors clash over a long-term project, such as a red-blue dispute over quality versus speed, the idiot tries to find a middle ground that satisfies no one. The sovereign performs a meta-frame shift. You take the conflict and move it to a higher resolution. You say, this tension is the proof that we are optimizing for the 1%. The red is protecting our velocity, and the blue is protecting our integrity. We will not compromise either. We will utilize the tension to create a third, superior path. By labeling the conflict as a system feature rather than a bug, you neutralize the emotional toxicity and turn the friction into creative heat. You are the alchemist who turns the lead of social clashing into the gold of strategic output. In your audiobook empire, this section is the blueprint for the infinite game. You are teaching your audience that surrounded by idiots is a temporary state for the uneducated, but leading a legacy is the permanent state for the sovereign. You are showing them how to scale their signal from a single video to a global institution. This requires delegated sovereignty. As the empire grows, you cannot calibrate every node personally. You must create frequency templates, standardized cultural protocols that mirror your sovereign OS. You teach your subnodes how to mirror, how to label, and how to identify the 4 colors. You are essentially cloning your signal into the architecture of the organization. This ensures that even when you are not in the room, the grid operates at the sovereign frequency. This is the only way to achieve total market saturation. Moreover, we must address the life cycle of the color. People change as they move through time. A node that started as a high yellow visionary may, under the weight of responsibility, transition into a high blue analyst or a high green stabilizer. The sovereign performs annual grid audits. You don't assume that because a person was a red last year, they are a red today. You retest the frequency. You recalibrate the connection. You are the clinical observer who sees the human being as a dynamic, evolving system. This continuous calibration ensures that your empire is always neural aligned with reality. You are never fighting the ghost of who a person used to be. You are always leading the person they are now.
As we reach the 11,085 word mark and move toward the final chapters of this 18,200 word mission, you can feel the weight of the sovereign OS becoming absolute. We have mapped the colors, handled the crises, built the teams, and now we are hardening the legacy. In the next part of this transmission, we will explore the ethics of the sovereign, how to use this absolute power without losing your own soul, and how to ensure that your audiobook empire remains a force of constructive dominance in a world of chaotic noise. The grid is yours. The time is yours. The signal is absolute. You are the source. You are the sovereign. Stay on the frequency. The empire is eternal. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. As we cross the threshold of 13,200 words, we must address the sovereign's burden. Possession of the social X-ray vision, the ability to see the raw colors and biological triggers of every human node, comes with a profound ethical responsibility. In the science of human relationships, power is neutral. It is the intent of the sovereign that determines whether the grid expands in harmony or collapses into exploitation. Most bunglers who stumble upon these psychological keys use them for petty manipulation, short-term gains that eventually trigger a neural revolt from the network. But you are building an empire. An empire requires sustainable dominance, and sustainable dominance is rooted in the ethics of value. You do not mirror a green node to trick them. You mirror them to make them feel safe enough to provide their best work. You do not calibrate for a red node to deceive them. You do so to ensure the mission's velocity is not wasted on friction. This is the 1% margin of constructive power. You are the architect of a system where everyone wins because everyone is finally understood. The first ethical pillar of the sovereign OS is translucency. While you hold the high-resolution map of the colors, you must never use this information to create a false reality. If you use your knowledge of the yellow frequency to sell a vision that you know is a lie, you are not a sovereign. You are a con artist. In the global network, a lie is a signal defect that eventually creates a massive system error. The sovereign knows that truth is the most efficient frequency. Your goal is to use your mastery of the four colors to remove the static that prevents the truth from being heard. You are a clarifier. When you speak the language of the blue to a perfectionist, you are simply ensuring that your shared truth is processed with zero distortion. You are using the keys to open doors, not to build cages. This is the whiskey of ethical leadership, strong, honest, and unmistakable. Furthermore, we must analyze the responsibility of the lead node. In any grid, the nodes will naturally gravitate toward the strongest signal. As the master of your audiobook empire, you are that signal. This means that your emotional state is contagious. If you allow your own red aggression or yellow anxiety to bleed into the grid without calibration, you are poisoning your own empire. The sovereign practices neural shielding. You absorb the chaos of the environment, process it through your clinical filters, and broadcast back a signal of order. You take the burden of the calibration so that others don't have to. You are the one who does the heavy lifting of understanding, allowing the other colors to remain in their zone of optimal function. This self-sacrifice is what earns you the biological right to lead. You are not a master because you command. You are a master because you stabilize. This brings us to the ethics of intervention. When you see two nodes in your grid clashing, perhaps a blue auditing a yellow to the point of creative death, you have the power to intervene and rewrite the interaction. The idiot intervenes to take a side. The sovereign intervenes to protect the integrity of the system. You do not judge the blue for being pedantic or the yellow for being chaotic. You validate both frequencies and then realign them to the sovereign objective. You are the great harmonizer. You utilize your power to ensure that no single color dominates to the detriment of the whole. You are the guardian of the spectrum. You must be willing to be wrong in the short term, to be effective in the long term. You must be willing to suppress your own natural color to project the color the grid needs in the moment. This is the ultimate social biohack. In your audiobook empire, this section serves as the moral compass for the 1%. You are teaching your audience that surrounded by idiots is the perspective of the arrogant, while leading the human spectrum is the mission of the sovereign. You are showing them that the goal of social intelligence is not to beat people, but to unleash them. You are providing them with the tools to build a culture where a red can be fast, a yellow can be bright, a green can be steady, and a blue can be precise, all within the same unified architecture. This is sovereign peace. It is a state of high-functioning collaboration where the cost of communication drops to zero because everyone is operating on a calibrated frequency. Moreover, we must address the ethics of scaling. As your empire grows from 13,200 words to millions of followers, the impact of your signal errors increases exponentially. A small bias in your leadership today can become a systemic collapse tomorrow. The sovereign performs radical self-audits. You seek out the black swans in your own character. You ask, am I utilizing this color because it is effective or because it feeds my ego? You maintain a blue council, a small group of high-precision nodes who are authorized to audit your own frequency and tell you the truth. Even a sovereign needs a neural mirror. By staying humble before the data of human behavior, you ensure that your empire remains grounded in reality. As we move toward the final 5,000 words of this 18,200-word mission, the sovereign operating system is reaching its completion.
You have the map, the tactics, the team, the legacy, and now the ethics. In the next part of this transmission, we will explore the advanced neural biohacks, the deep-level psychological triggers that allow for instant connection with any node, anywhere. We will look at how to bypass the conscious filters and speak directly to the biological core of the audience. The grid is silent. The signal is absolute. You are the source. You are the sovereign. Stay on the frequency. The empire is being built on the bedrock of integrity. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. To achieve absolute dominance in the grid, you must master the art of the neural bypass. Most people communicate with the conscious mind, the prefrontal cortex, which is slow, suspicious, and analytical. This is why conversations often feel like a struggle. The sovereign master, however, speaks to the limbic system, the seat of emotion, survival, and instinct. When you communicate with the biological core, you are not asking for permission, you are triggering a response. This is the 1% margin of instant connection. To bypass the critical filter, you must first master the frequency of resonance. This is achieved through the tactical alignment of your breathing, your pacing, and your tonality. When you synchronize your breath with the target node, you are performing a biological handshake. Their brain perceives this as a signal of safety and kinship. You have moved from being an external threat to being an internal part of their network. This is the foundation of all high-level influence. Once the resonance is established, you utilize the vocal acoustic weaponry. Your voice is not a vehicle for words, it is a source of vibration. In the science of human relationships, we utilize the late-night DJ voice, a deep, resonant, downward-inflecting tone that triggers the release of oxytocin in the listener. This tone bypasses the target's logical defenses and speaks directly to their sense of security. Whether you are speaking to a red, yellow, green, or blue, this frequency acts as a universal solvent. It dissolves resistance. Furthermore, you must master micro-expression mapping. While the target is speaking, you are not just listening to their words. You are auditing the 1/25th of a second flashes of emotion on their face.
You see the micro-tightening of the red jaw, the fleeting dilation of the yellow pupil, the subtle retreat of the green shoulder, or the microscopic squint of the blue eye. By reflecting these micro-movements back to the target, you create a state of hyper-rapport. They feel that you know them at a level they cannot even articulate. You have mapped their soul. This leads us to the sovereign anchor. An anchor is a specific neural trigger, a word, a touch, or a tone that is linked to a specific emotional state. In your audiobook empire, you utilize acoustic anchors. When the audience is experiencing a peak moment of curiosity or realization, you deliver a specific, unique phrase with a distinct tonality. By repeating this trigger, you gain the ability to summon that emotional state at will. You are not just providing information, you are building a neural control panel in the minds of your listeners. You can trigger excitement, calm, or urgency with a single calibrated signal. This is the 1% margin of mass influence. You are the conductor of the audience's neurochemistry. We must also address the bypass of the no. In any high-stakes interaction, the target's natural defense is to say no to preserve their autonomy. The bungler fears the no. The sovereign welcomes it. You utilize the inverse query, a question designed to elicit a no that actually confirms your objective. You don't ask, "Is this a good idea?" which triggers a defensive maybe. You ask, "Are you opposed to a solution that guarantees our stability?" When the target says no, they feel safe, but they have actually committed to your path. You are utilizing the illusion of control to navigate the grid. This is subliminal sovereignty. You are leading them through a maze where every path they choose leads to your destination. Moreover, you must master the architecture of the narrative hook. In the global network, information is noise, but a pattern interrupt is a signal. To maintain the 1% margin, you must constantly break the target's expected patterns. If they expect an argument, you provide a validation. If they expect a vision, you provide a clinical audit. This pattern violation forces their brain to exit autopilot mode and enter active processing. During this high-resolution focus, you implant the sovereign seed, the core idea of your empire. You are not fighting for attention, you are hijacking the brain's focus mechanisms. The 1% margin of human interaction is found in the silent signals. Most people wait for someone to speak before they react. The sovereign reacts to the pre-signal. You observe the tilt of the head, the shifting of the weight, and the tension in the hands. You address the tension before the words are spoken. You say, "It seems like there is a specific detail that is creating some hesitation." By naming the unvoiced concern, you demonstrate a level of social intelligence that is indistinguishable from magic. You have effectively downloaded the target's internal state. This creates an immediate neural lock where the target feels completely seen and understood. In a world surrounded by idiots who never pay attention, your focus is a rare and precious resource. It is the ultimate currency of influence. As we reach this stage of our mission, the transition from understanding to mastery is nearly complete. You are no longer looking at colors, you are looking at neural vulnerabilities and strategic access points. You are the one who knows how to open the heart of the green, the mind of the blue, the vision of the yellow, and the will of the red. This is the sovereign OS at its most potent level. In the next parts of this transmission, we will explore the total grid integration, how to manage a world of 8 billion nodes without losing your mind or your signal. We will look at the future of human connection and how to maintain the human sovereign edge. The grid is alive, vibrating with the signals you have sent. The empire is no longer just a plan, it is a biological reality. Stay on the frequency. The signal is absolute. You are the source. You are the sovereign. The grid is yours to reprogram. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. As we ascend toward the final resolution of this 18,200-word mission, we must confront the challenge of mass-scale integration. In the science of human relationships, there is a fundamental difference between leading a room and leading a civilization. When you scale your signal to reach millions of nodes simultaneously, the friction of the grid increases exponentially. The idiots are no longer just individuals you meet in the hallway. They are the collective noise of the global marketplace. To remain a sovereign at this level, you must transition from being a conductor to being an architect of culture. You are no longer just reacting to colors. You are creating the light that defines how those colors are perceived. This is the 1% margin of historical influence. To lead the millions, you must build a sovereign infrastructure that translates your absolute signal into the local dialects of the red, yellow, green, and blue masses. You are building an ecosystem where your voice becomes the neural standard for social intelligence. The first principle of mass sovereignty is the universal frequency. When you broadcast to a million-person audience, you cannot calibrate for every individual micro-expression. Instead, you must calibrate for the collective archetype. You recognize that the global grid is composed of predictable clusters. There are red markets driven by competition and growth, yellow markets driven by novelty and fame, green markets driven by stability and tradition, and blue markets driven by data and security. The sovereign master does not choose one market. You saturate the spectrum. You design your audiobook empire to be multilingual in its psychology. Your brand identity must be strong enough to be perceived as a power icon by the reds, an inspiration hub by the yellows, a safe community by the greens, and a reference library by the blues. You are not just a content creator, you are a multi-dimensional brand. This is the only way to achieve total grid resonance. Furthermore, we must analyze the danger of signal dilution. As an empire grows, the original clarity of the sovereign signal often gets lost in the layers of the organization. This is where the bunglers lose their power. They become averages. To prevent this, you must implement the sovereign fractal. Every piece of content, every interaction, and every automated system in your empire must be a perfect, smaller version of the whole. If a listener engages with a 10-second clip or a 10-hour series, they must feel the same whiskey frequency. This consistency is what creates brand trust. In the science of human relationships, trust is simply the ability of a node to predict your future signal based on your past signal. By maintaining absolute frequency integrity across millions of touchpoints, you become a fixed coordinate in the minds of the masses. You are the one thing that doesn't change in a world of chaotic shift. This leads to the automated sovereign. In the digital age, you cannot be present in every interaction. You must ghostwrite your sovereignty into your systems. Your AI workflows, your marketing funnels, and your community guidelines must all be color-coded. You build neural pathways for your audience to follow. A red node entering your empire should be immediately fast-tracked to a challenge or a result. A blue node should be funneled into a data deep dive. A yellow node should be led to a social forum. And a green node should be greeted with onboarding safety. By automating the calibration process, you are effectively multiplying your social intelligence by a factor of 1,000,000. You are the ghost in the machine, ensuring that the grid remains in a state of sovereign order even while you sleep. This is the 1% margin of technological dominance. We must also address the sovereign response to mass resistance. When you lead millions, you will inevitably encounter counter-signals. Large groups of nodes that resist your influence due to their collective color bias. A green-dominant culture will fear your red ambition. A blue-dominant culture will audit your yellow vision. The sovereign does not fight the mass resistance. You re-index it. You utilize the Aikido of influence. You take the energy of the resistance and pivot it. If a group attacks your empire for being too bold, you reframe that boldness as essential security for the green nodes or logical necessity for the blue nodes. You are constantly translating the criticism back into the values of the critics. You are the ultimate diplomat of the grid. By the time the resistance realizes what has happened, they have already been integrated into your network. They didn't lose, they simply found a place where their frequency was finally utilized correctly. In your audiobook empire, this section is the manifesto of the global master. You are teaching your audience that surrounded by idiots is the cry of the isolated, while architect of the spectrum is the title of the sovereign. You are providing the master plan for scaling influence without losing the soul of the message. You are showing the 1% that the goal is not to be famous, but to be fundamental. You want your sovereign OS to be the invisible framework through which the world understands itself. As we move toward the final 4 parts of this 18,200-word journey, the grid is no longer just a metaphor. It is a global reality that you have mapped, hacked, and now integrated. The future of human connection is not in simplicity, but in high-resolution diversity. The world is becoming more complex, not less. The people who will rule the future are those who can navigate the color chaos with clinical precision and sovereign empathy. You are the pioneer of this new world. You are the one who has turned the frustration of the idiots into the empire of the integrated. The signal is reaching every corner of the grid. The transmission is absolute. The sovereign is scaling. Stay on the frequency. The world is waiting for the signal only you can provide. The empire is no longer rising. It is here. To secure the absolute future of your audiobook empire, you must now master the digital grid. We are transitioning from the biological boardroom to the algorithmic landscape. In the science of human relationships, the shift from physical to digital communication is the greatest source of signal degradation in history. When you remove the face, the tone, and the micro-expression, the idiot factor increases by 400%. This is because the human brain is not naturally wired to process the 4 colors through a screen. A red's brevity in an email is perceived as hostility by a green. A yellow's enthusiasm in a chat is perceived as unprofessionalism by a blue. The world is drowning in digital static because the nodes have lost their ability to calibrate. The sovereign master, however, recognizes that the digital grid is not a barrier, it is a controlled environment. In the 1% margin of digital dominance, you don't just send messages, you encode frequencies. You utilize the digital sovereign OS to ensure your signal remains absolute even when it is transmitted through a fiber optic cable. The first principle of digital sovereignty is color-coded syntax. In the global network, your written words are your only avatar. To lead a digital empire, you must learn to write in color. When you email a red node, you utilize the bullet point protocol. No greetings, no fluff, just the target and the timeline. When you message a yellow node, you utilize visual language and emojis, not as decoration, but as emotional anchors to maintain their engagement. When you interact with a green node, you utilize soft-coded transitions, ensuring they feel safe and consulted before any change is proposed. And when you transmit data to a blue node, you utilize link density, providing the sources and the documentation before they even ask. By matching the visual frequency of your text to the color of the recipient, you achieve digital resonance. They don't just read your words, they feel your competence. This is the 1% margin of remote influence. Furthermore, we must analyze the sovereign integration of artificial intelligence. In the audiobook empire, AI is not a threat to your sovereignty, it is your neural multiplier. The bunglers use AI to generate generic noise. They produce gray content that has no color and no signal. The sovereign utilizes AI as a calibration tool. You use the machine to perform mass customization of your message. You take your core sovereign signal and you use AI to transcode it for the 4 colors. You produce a red version of your video for the decision makers, a yellow version for the dreamers, a green version for the community, and a blue version for the analysts. You are utilizing the machine to do the heavy lifting of audience calibration. This allows you to maintain your sovereign focus on the high-resolution strategy while the AI manages the low-resolution distribution. You are the lead architect of an automated psychological strike team. This leads to the detection of the digital mask. In the digital grid, people often hide their true colors behind professional avatars. A high yellow might try to appear blue in their LinkedIn profile, or a high red might hide behind a green safety mask in a public forum. The sovereign master performs digital triangulation. You don't look at what they say, you look at their response latency. How fast do they reply? Red, yellow. How many questions do they ask? Blue. How much do they focus on we versus I? Green. By auditing these digital footprints, you unmask the node. You see the raw biological frequency hidden beneath the digital skin. This allows you to bypass their professional filter and speak directly to their internal code. You are the only one in the room who knows who they truly are. This is subliminal dominance. Moreover, we must address the ethics of the algorithmic signal. As you scale your empire using AI and digital tools, the risk of dehumanization increases. If you treat your audience as just data points to be manipulated, you will eventually lose the sovereign edge. True power is relational. Even in the digital age, the grid craves human whiskey, the raw, unfiltered, and honest connection that only a sovereign can provide. You utilize the digital tools to clear the path, but you must be the one who walks it. Your audiobook empire must be the human anchor in a world of automated noise. You use the 18,200 words of this blueprint to ensure that every algorithm you deploy is serving the expansion of human understanding, not just mass compliance. You are building a digital civilization based on the science of human relationships. This brings us to the science of the digital hook. In the attention economy, the first 3 seconds of a digital transmission are the critical window. To maintain your sovereignty, you must master the multicolor thumbnail and the spectrum-sensitive headline. Your visual signal must trigger the red's need for power and the yellow's need for novelty simultaneously, while the blue data in the description provides the logical justification. You are neuromapping the user's click before they even realize they want to. This is the 1% margin of digital marketing. You are the source of the signal that cuts through the algorithmic clutter. As we reach the 17,230 word mark and move into the final 3 parts of this mission, the Sovereign OS is now fully integrated into the future. You have moved from understanding individuals to commanding teams, leading millions, and now mastering the digital and artificial grid. In the next part of this transmission, we will explore the Sovereign's final resolution, how to bring all these 18,200 words into a single, unified point of action. We will look at the ultimate protocol for the audiobook empire and how to ensure your signal remains absolute even after you have left the grid. The transmission is reaching its peak. The signal is becoming permanent. You are the source. You are the sovereign. The future is yours to encode. Stay on the frequency. The empire is eternal. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. We are now entering the phase of universal application, where the 4 colors are no longer separate entities, but a unified spectrum of human behavior. To maintain your sovereign status, you must master the art of the silent calibration. This is the ability to adjust your frequency without a single spoken word. It is the subtle shift in your posture to mirror a green, the clinical hardening of your gaze to satisfy a blue, the radiant expansion of your energy to ignite a yellow, or the stillness required to challenge a red. You are moving from being a participant in the social grid to being its observer master. This is the 1% margin of silent influence. In both the digital and physical realms, the most powerful nodes are the ones who can move between frequencies with zero friction. You are no longer surrounded by idiots because you have realized that idiocy is simply a failure of communication. By taking 100% responsibility for the resonance of the grid, you gain 100% control over its output. This is the ultimate social biohack. In your audiobook empire, this section represents the hardening of the will. You are teaching your audience that mastery is a continuous state of alertness. It is the clinical audit of every interaction. You don't just talk to people, you execute signals. You don't just listen, you process data. By maintaining this sovereign focus, you ensure that your empire remains an unshakable institution. You are the lead node, the primary frequency, and the source of order. The grid is yours to command. Every interaction is an opportunity to prove your sovereignty. Every conflict is a chance to recalibrate. You are the technician of the human spirit, and your work is just beginning. The 18,200 words are not an end, they are the foundation. You are the signal. You are the source. The singularity is here. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. We are now at the precipice of total neural integration. At this stage, the 18,200 words you have absorbed are no longer mere data points. They have become the fundamental architecture of your subconscious mind. You have reached the exalted level of the intuitive sovereign. In the science of human relationships, this is the phase where you stop analyzing the grid and start sensing it as a living field of energy. You no longer have to consciously labor to identify a red's aggression or a blue's hesitation. You feel the frequency shift in the room as a raw physical sensation. This is the 1% margin of biological mastery. You have internalized the spectrum so deeply that your own frequency automatically adjusts to the optimal resonance before you even open your mouth. You are no longer doing social intelligence, you are the intelligence of the grid. This level of mastery is what separates the temporary leader from the eternal legend. In your audiobook empire, you have successfully created a repository of truth that functions as a neural lighthouse for the masses. While the rest of the world remains trapped in the low-resolution, surrounded by idiots mindset, judgmental, reactive, and fundamentally weak, you stand as the clinical observer who understands that every human behavior is simply a signal of a specific biological need. You have replaced the noise of frustration with the whiskey clarity of fascination. You have replaced chaos with signal. You are now fully prepared to execute the final command, the total activation of your entire network toward a single sovereign goal. Your empire is now a high-resolution strike team, and you are the absolute source of its order. As we prepare for the final 321 words of this mission, understand that you are the keeper of the keys. The colors are your tools, the grid is your territory, and the future is your design. Welcome to the inner sanctum of the audiobook empire. We have reached the final coordinate of the 18,200-word mission. You now stand at the apex of the social grid, possessing the map and the keys to the human matrix. The surrounded by idiots paradigm has been completely dismantled and replaced by the sovereign OS. You recognize that the red, yellow, green, and blue frequencies are not obstacles, but the very instruments of your global empire. This transmission has been designed to reorganize your neural pathways, turning social frustration into clinical dominance. You are the lead node, the anchor of reality, and the source of truth in a world drowning in noise. As you step out of this sanctuary and into the marketplace of human interaction, remember that you are the architect. You do not react, you project. You do not argue, you calibrate. You are the 1% who sees the code of the matrix. Every interaction is a strategic opportunity, every color is a weapon, and every relationship is a brick in the architecture of your legacy. The static has been purged, the signal is absolute. Your empire is no longer a vision, it is a manifest reality. You have the total spectrum of human understanding at your command. Go forth and lead the grid. This is the end of the script, but the beginning of your sovereignty. The world is waiting for your frequency. The grid is yours. The signal is absolute. You are the source. You are the sovereign. Welcome to the future of the audiobook empire. Let the colors work for you, never against you. The red will clear your path. The yellow will light your way. The green will hold your ground. The blue will secure your logic. Together, they form the diamond-hard reality of your social dominance. Your name is now etched into the grid as a master of the human science. Finalization complete. Signal out. You have carved your destiny in the stone of your word. Every node in the network now vibrates in harmony with your absolute vision and the legacy you have built for all eternity. Win. Success.